241st Contact. Part 1. Monday, 3rd of February 1992, 23:33. Translators are DeepL Translatorauto-Translation, Joseph Darmanin, Dyson Devine and Vivienne Legg.
Certain circumstances prevented me from coming here earlier.
What matters is that you came here at all, and that fact makes me happy.
The joy is also worth mentioning for my part, and surely you will also be happy about the many greetings I should order from my two daughters Semjace and Plejadisch. Also Asked and Nera send you their greetings as well as Quetzal, Ptaah and Manara and all others. Also the spiritual leadership of Era sends you love and good wishes and greetings. Many people greet you, although you only know them by sight or they only know you by sight or hearsay. They all have the same wish that I should express to you their connection with them. Edward.
Thank you. I am very pleased, and all the dear wishes and greetings touch me deeply. It is strange how deeply these wishes and greetings touch me. Really very strange.
Everyone will be very pleased to hear this.
Please, dear friend, pay all my dearest greetings and wishes.
Of course I will do that.
Thanks, but now I have to ask you questions again.
I will be happy to answer your questions, but first I would like to ask you something, if this is not outrageous of me.
But Ptaah, neither a request nor a question from you can be impertinent.
I would crave a sip of peach wine if I could ask for it.
But certainly, that's not a question. Wait here, a glass for you and one for me. Now I'll get the wine, which I put outside in the cool, because I myself drink a glass every now and then, if I feel like it. Well, here I am again. If you allow me, I'll pour it right away. You know, I thought to myself that you would certainly like to have some bottles of this wine. That's why I also provided a box of 6 that you can take with you. How did the wine taste with Quetzal, by the way? But now cheers.
For the good, just refreshing. Well, when Quetzal heard from me that I had tested the wine together with you, found it to be very good and received another bottle from you as a gift, he could no longer be deterred from tasting the bottle he had brought with him together with me.
A huge tasting, a whole bottle like that, I would like to say. And did he find the wine as good as the two of us?
Certainly.
He found it as refreshing as we did.
Then everything is in butter, and the old word comes true again.
De gustib et non et disputandum.
There's no arguing about taste.
At least in this case it's true, even if I don't always have the same opinion about it.
You may be right about that, especially when I think about how many people on Earth suffer from loss of taste because their taste senses are completely or at least to a large extent destroyed. That's where you can really argue about taste.
That's right.
Juste et French cuisine en exemple, aux compositions sauf temps absolument inaudible.
I know that when I think of rice cassama, which is seasoned with pineapple, or other dishes where meat dishes are mixed with berries and fruits or seasoned, then I feel sick.
The nausea also rises in me when I think about it.
As you like, although this would have been just the opportunity to talk about the culinary cruelties of the gourmets. But let's not do that, and so I can put my first question straight away. Concerning your statements about the planet racing behind the sun at high speed.
Your question refers to the planet that is not visible from Earth because it travels around the sun at such high speed that it always remains hidden behind the sun?
There is a lack of clarity about the enormous speed. It's usually the case that the further a planet is from the sun, the slower it orbits around the sun. Why isn't that the case with this planet? Why is it much faster than usual, and what is its name?
This planet, in terms of its enormous speed, is indeed a phenomenon whose secret we were able to fathom only a little over 76 years ago. Once again we had to realize that the wandering planet destroyer had also brought its dangerous forces into play on this planet. The planet Cathine, as it is called in our records, hidden behind the sun, was touched by the Sol system at the 10th last passage of the destroyer through the Sol system and torn into its gravitational force field, but then broke out of the force field again and maintained its almost normal orbit around the sun, but at an enormously increased speed, while the destroyer continued his pre-drawn orbit and broke into the solar system, causing destruction or changes in many places. Since then, the planet Cathine itself has been orbiting the sun in the form and at abnormally high speed mentioned above, but slowly moving away from the solar system and entering the attraction area of a wandering spiral arm of a black hole that will sweep the planet with it later this year. It is the same spiral arm that also took the sand and dust accumulations of the planet Venus.
When will the rip-off happen?
According to our calculations, this event will take place on 16 June.
Is Cathine one of those two planets that we haven't discovered yet and that we call Uni and Transpluto?
No, the planet Cathine has nothing to do with it. It is also without any life of any form.
And the spiral arm of the black hole, will it be even more effective in our solar system?
No, because if there are not unpredictable changes, then the spiral arm collapses with the torn path of the planet Cathine and again becomes one with the hollow funnel of the black hole or even the black hole, as the Earth humans call these structures. Each black hole is usually a funnel-shaped structure of rotating form, which has wandering spiral arms, which often extend very far into free space and even have distances in light years calculated. In rare cases we ourselves have measured such matter crackers, as we call these spiral arms of the black holes, in lengths of up to 8.7 light years.
And the black hole, to which the spiral arm belongs, cannot be dangerous to Earth, or even to the Sol system.
Not the black hole itself, no, because it is too far away from this system. Spiral arms could be dangerous, however, if they spread again and approach the Sol system, which is not very likely.
Very reassuring to know. It wouldn't be fun for me to find myself part of a black hole. But now a further question. This time it refers again to Boris Yeltsin. Have you in the meantime gained some new knowledge regarding himself and his machinations as well as regarding the stability of the CIS, as the Federation likes to call itself?
I can still remember your earlier assumptions that you made on 18 May last year. Yeltsin is now in the process of harvesting those fruits everywhere where Mikhail Gorbachev has cultivated them in laborious work and sacrifice of his powers, after he first had to plant, care for and raise the corresponding seedlings laboriously and under many dangers for himself. As you predicted, the Russian people will slowly come to terms with reality and recognize Yeltsin's incompetence and the play of lies and intrigues. But I will tell you a little later about these things and about our foresighted insights.
Can't you tell me about it tonight?
You misunderstand me, dear friend. Later I thought about tonight, only some time later.
Oh so, excuse me, I really misunderstood you. You know, sometimes I don't quite get along with your time terms. In a short time it can mean that you mean a few days or several months. So later can mean in a few days or weeks or at a little later hour, as you say now.
I understand.
Of course, because once you speak according to your concepts of time feeling, and another time you go according to the concept of time feeling that prevails here with us.
Your objection is correct. This error is also known to us, but we repeatedly fall for it as a result of the fact that we have to concern ourselves only in a lesser way with earthly form of the concept of time.
Of course, you are mostly elsewhere, where you live according to your concepts of time. That's understandable and I don't want to blame you. It's not that important either. It would be more important to know whether something is finally being done to eliminate Saddam Hussein, because he poses an inexorably growing threat to world peace and the ecological security of Earth. I have made some calculations in this regard and they have resulted in some rather malicious things.
It is worked on Earth in the direction that Saddam Hussein is to be eliminated, whereby particularly the Americans want to become active in this connection. However, there are no firm plans in this respect unfortunately, because the danger Saddam Hussein grows daily.
That's what my calculations show. The killer is already so far again that he can strike at a neighboring country. It is incomprehensible to me that the secret services of the relevant states have not yet learned of this and that the relevant armies have not yet struck again to do the full work necessary this time. This may sound quite warmongering, but it is by no means so. It is a very urgent necessity to prevent very bad things and to save human lives and the world.
This is true, even though many people disagree with false and effeminate humanity and unrealistic views. Earth people live on an Earth that is inhabited and ruled by still very barbaric human life forms, that murder and kill each other for the sake of profit and greed for power and for the sake of fulfilling their emotions. And this applies not only to Saddam Hussein, but also to the Americans, Israelis, Palestinians and others, if in the process falsely informed, falsely humanized, effeminate, religiously misguided and degenerate world do-gooders cry out for peace, love, justice and humanity in the form that violent criminals and mass murderers etc. are simply to be left to their criminal actions and left unchallenged, then this corresponds to a criminal irresponsibility without equal, which is no less violent than that of those who are violent criminals and mass murderers.
I know, we've talked about this before. Nevertheless, it will be the case that all these false humanists and false do-gooders, religiously and falsely humanely misguided and falsely informed, etc., will be the same. The tedious and the murderous will cry out against our words when they become acquainted with them. This is because they understand neither the creative natural guidelines nor the actual laws and commandments of life and thus also not the laws of self-defense. This is in contrast to those who simply cry out for murder and manslaughter and for the death penalty and who glorify violence and war. These also do not know the creative natural laws and thus not the law of the logically necessary violence in the case of self-defense. But there is no point in continuing to talk about this, for it is impossible to teach reason to lunatics. Let us therefore turn our attention to things that may be of use. My question refers once again to the AIDS epidemic. You said last year that this epidemic would continue to rise sharply. Do you have any new calculations, forecasts or simply clarifications about the reality of the situation?
In this respect I can give you some information, namely those of the state of reality. Since our conversation on 18 May last year, the situation has worsened drastically, because now 91.3% of heterosexuals are already carrying and spreading the AIDS epidemic. The infection has also taken a rapid form, but this is logically explained by the fact that, of course, the more sick people who carry the disease through their irresponsibility, the more infections occur. The forms of irresponsibility are also based on emotional degenerations such as hatred and revenge, indifference and wantonness, etc. Many people deliberately spread the disease out of hatred that they themselves were infected, which is why they want to contaminate as many people as possible with the disease, because they do not allow the healthy to be healthy and to live, because as carriers of the disease they themselves are doomed to death. If they themselves cannot live on, then others should not be allowed to. This is the motto of these mad AIDS patients. The infections, which occur out of revenge, show similar or even the same tendencies. In addition to all these mentioned infection incidents, there are also criminal infections, which are becoming more and more prevalent. For example, for some time now, criminal organizations have been deliberately infecting uncomfortable confidants, ricochets, unwilling or otherwise unacceptable persons with the AIDS virus in order to eradicate them from the world in this way without the murder being recognized. The rule here is that the persons to be infected themselves are unconsciously infected with this disease and that only in very few cases does a conscious infection take place. This is the latest form of perfect murder on earth by criminal elements or criminal organizations, a fact that is unfortunately still unknown in official form, and a crime that is becoming more and more widespread. Our research has already revealed several cases in which spouses brought their spouses, who had become tired of them, together with AIDS-infected persons in a criminal manner and persuaded them to enter into sexual relations with their spouses, but without the spouses being informed from the other side that the acquaintances were carriers of the AIDS epidemic. Thus the spouses who had become annoyed were contaminated and committed death, while the criminal spouses could celebrate their perfectly successful murder, a kind of murderous killing of a troublesome spouse, which will be very difficult to prove as murder, as well as the actions of criminals in criminal organizations. Unfortunately, there is also a tendency for these forms of murder to spread rapidly and to be imitated throughout the world, for according to our findings, these murder practices are already being practiced in 47 countries around the world. Your homeland, Switzerland, is unfortunately also one of them, for there too such murders have already taken place in large numbers. However, these murders are not or only extremely difficult to prove, which is why the murderers go unpunished, quite apart from the fact that this type of murder is still unknown to the fight against crime. Furthermore, with regard to the AIDS epidemic, it must be said that in 24 to 30 months from today it will be expected to be the main cause of death in certain circles of certain Earthlings, at least for the age groups between the 16th and the 55th year of life. Unfortunately, this will not be enough, because the AIDS epidemic also brings with it other factors of evil, such as tuberculosis, a disease that is once again spreading and is infectious. This previously very dreaded disease, which the terrestrial man had got well under control, is once again on the rise and is also on the rise very quickly, simply because of the AIDS epidemic, which promotes this disease and against which the conventional and new drugs are becoming increasingly ineffective.
Your words anticipate a gloomy future on Earth. You can't do much or nothing about it, can you?
Unfortunately not yet in medical form. Unfortunately also not as a result of the unreasonableness of the know-it-alls, the false humanists, the religiously lost and the do-gooders of the world, who also reject the best safety and prevention measures, because in their sick thinking they quite simply describe reasonable protective and prevention measures as inhuman, and for these erroneous views still find enough followers who support them.
Unfortunately,